Well, I'm Shaggy, the opinionated hippie, and this is part 25 of my ranking and reviewing Frank Zappa's guitar solos within the context of an album. So what I'm going to do is pick an album. Today it's Road Tapes Venue Number 2, Finlandia Hall, Helsinki. You Can't Do That on the Stage Venue 2. It's made to feel like a complete show, but it's actually put together from a couple different shows. I've been focusing all the solos and albums I've been doing lately are from 73, 74, or 75 era, George Duke, Tom Fowler specifically. So we're going to try to, we got a couple more releases. We're going to try to take care of all those releases. This is from the Summer 73 tour, the second little tour that they did before they added Napoleon Murphy Brock and Chester Thompson on the following, like, fall tour. This weird little amazing pocket tour where Frank Zappa's guitar playing is all of a sudden ridiculously amazing, where in fall 73 he would kind of like, I don't know, something happened, the two drummers, the sound of his tone, something. Earlier stuff was kind of okay, but this, earlier 73 stuff, but this little tour was fantastic. The rhythm section, the Tom Fowler, Ralph Humphrey rhythm section, rest in peace, Ralph, ridiculous. Listening to these solos recently, I was like, oh my goodness, the rhythm section. Oh my goodness, the rhythm section. Oh my goodness, Fowler. Oh my goodness, Humphrey. There were so many fantastic moments. And so, even though Frank is playing incredibly well, he's got an aggressive tone, he's got a mean tone. Some of the solos that are traditionally not too heavy kind of feel a little bit heavier. And yet the rhythm section is so ridiculously amazing. And there are several solos on here. Parts of the Redunzel solo, definitely parts of the Dupree's Paradise solo, the All Skate Dun 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 finish hit single Jam. Remind me of the Grateful Dead, like late 60s, early 70s Dead. Something about, maybe it's the one drummer, maybe it's Humphrey's drumming, kind of sounds like Kreutzmann's drumming. But there's something about the energy of Frank's playing, the percussion, just reminds me of like early Dead jams, like jams that would drop in the middle of like a Love Light or like in a Caution, those type of like just very loose kind of, those kind of completely improvisational jams that pop up in the middle of like other longer jams type thing. So a really, really neat energy to these solos. There's 5 of them. I'm going to rank them from 5 to 1, and then I'm going to show where this album falls among the other 24. Then I'm going to rank this tour, because this is the only document we have of the summer tour. So I'm going to show it where it falls among the other 3 tours that I've done every single solo of elsewhere on this channel. So here we go. Number 5, and this solo might be number 1 on other releases. That's how good this release is. Number 5 is Montana. This is one of those that kind of has a heavier vibe than most Montanas. Like Montanas in 73 and 74 are some of my favorite things because the rhythm section, the groove, the funk. This one seems less funky and more just kind of heavy and gritty, and Frank really getting into it. It still has a really, really solid groove on it, but it's not as funky as it would be like in 73 and 74, the end of 73 and 74. But still an absolutely fantastic Montana solo. It's at number 5 only because the other 4 are so incredibly good. Number 4 is Redunzel. Again, the rhythm section, the rhythm section, the rhythm section. This has a much different feel than Redunzel's would have in like 74 or definitely in like the 80s. Definitely seems more of a like, let's get from point A to point B as fast as we can type, just groove solo, but it works. Like Frank is so on point, like everything he's playing just works. It's tasty. He's like really aggressive, but the rhythm section is supporting him well. And then it keeps going kind of on and on and on. And then towards the end is when Frank really kind of starts to space out the notes, gets a little more playful, kind of is responding a little more to the rhythm section. There's a little more space in the solo. So it's one of those that feels like it's just going to be this race through like, you know, the designated solo spot, as it kind of would feel in the fall 73 Redunzel solos. But after it goes on for quite a while, then Frank just starts to relax and loosen up and get playful. This is one of those that definitely reminds me of Early Dead, especially towards the end, like maybe like when they're wrapping up like a dancing in the street jam and then Jerry goes off on something, a little quick tangent for another 30 seconds or so. That's what the energy in this feels like. Those kind of loose jams where like you feel like they're going to wrap it up, but then Jerry's off again. And that's the way Frank, it feels like you're going to wrap it up, but then Frank's off again before we ease back in Redunzo. Really, really, really nice. That's number 4. Number 3 is sort of this improv number. It's a jam that's in this improv piece where Frank's like, okay, you're going to start off and then we're going to conduct you in and then we're going to just drop into a jam and everybody's going to get a chance to solo. Frank solos. This one, more than any of them, reminds me of like a late 60s, maybe 70, 71 Dead jam. It's loose. It's a pure jam. You know, this is not a song that they play every night. This is a spontaneous, this show only type jam. Kind of feels like a Don't You Ever Watch That Thing. Like Frank would like lean into this kind of jam and Don't You Ever Watch That Thing from here on out. Sometimes in the rest of 73 and 74. But it's just a jam. And Frank is going at it, and it just feels so good. And it has kind of a little loose, Grateful Dead bluesy feel to it. The rhythm section is fantastic. The energy is fantastic. It goes on for several minutes. It's just like, yeah, it's just a band having a really good time playing music, and Frank's on the lead charging. Another just ridiculous solo. And the fact that it's one of those solos that like, we don't have a lot of these solos to compare it to because this was an improvisational moment, like completely from scratch. You know, it was like baked from scratch live in front of the audience. And so that, I don't think that makes it better, but I mean, it's already great, but it does make it a little better. I'm not saying it's the thing that makes it good. It's the thing that makes it even greater than it already is. That's number 3. Number 2 is the Dupree's Paradise solo. Some of my favorite solos from this era are the Dupree's Paradise, because this is Frank's like, I'm going to experiment vehicle from this time. Starts off really kind of quiet, but still pretty up-tempo and pretty intense, and then he kind of slowly builds the intensity, and then he gets playful and starts doing these weird runs that kind of go against the grain of the rhythm. You know, kind of gets very random for a while. Then after he's playing for, I don't know, a couple minutes, he starts doing this, he hits this like, he's got this moment where he just bends and feeds back this note for a while, and it just kind of hangs in the air, and then he's off again. One of the really cool things about it is the rhythm section almost the entire time is playing that just rhythm, that same sort of Dupree's Paradise bubbling type vamp underneath. And Frank's like almost like he's like tearing it, like he's got restraints on, and he's just like trying to rip loose of these from these restraints. And the rhythm section's giving and taking a little bit, but they're not ever breaking. So even though Frank's trying to go outside and trying to push them in new places, mostly Humphrey responds with some interesting things, but it stays locked in, and it's sort of like that sort of restraint feel, and Frank really trying to push the boundaries but not being allowed to, but doing so anyway, makes for just this really, really awesome sort of dynamic between him and the band. Goes on for quite a while. I think it's like 4 or 5 minutes of him playing around, and then he builds up intensity, and it is just what the awesomeness of Dupree's Paradise from 73, 74. Another excellent solo. And then my favorite solo from this release, Big Swifty. It's just 5+ minutes of Frank heaven. He starts off with these really low notes, like he's at the starting line, and he's like bending down and like just getting ready to go, and he plays these low notes, and then he's just like off, and he just goes, he takes off. He does a lot of what I call momentum building, where he'll you know, kind of solo around the fretboard, and then he kind of goes to the low end and kind of like will play like the same notes over and over, and then kind of work his way up the fretboard, and you feel like you're escalating or things are accelerating or we're going to reach this peak. And he never really reaches a climax, because then he's off on some other run, then he does it again, then he's off on some other run. And he does this for like 5+ minutes, and there's like doses of like feedback in there. There's him bending notes. There's him kind of getting weird and playing around with the rhythm section for a while. It's just like an absolute monster. At one point when you, I don't know, about 4 minutes in, you maybe feel like he's going to like wrap up the solo. Maybe we're going to go back into the Big Swifty thing. All of a sudden it's just like, we, he drops into some serious wah-wah action. So all of a sudden the guitar's like wah-wah, gets all like floaty, and it's like we're going into like a whole nother section of this. Yeah, just absolutely amazing. And I think this is the one solo where like towards the end of the solo, he like eases us back into like the Big Swifty. So like we're picking up pace, and it's like we're gonna peak and then go into Big Swifty, but then he kind of like gently like caresses us back into like the finish of the song. It's just a perfectly executed solo. The rhythm section is fantastic. It's almost like Ponty and Duke got a chance to shine earlier, and it's almost like they raised the bar so high, because Ponty is fantastic on this tour. They raised the bar so high, Frank like had to respond, and he responds just absolutely perfectly. But yeah, fantastic solos, all 5 of them. That's what they look like in writing. They're all excellent solos. Where would I rank this album in compared to the other 24? Right there at number 2. Can't touch that volume 2. Volume 2 has what I think are 3 perfect solos. I talk about it on that video. I'm sure you can figure out what they are if you're familiar. I mean, 3 like what I think are perfect solos. So it's going to be hard to top that because there's no bad solos on that release. But this is pretty close. Like this, the level of guitar playing on this almost entire tour. Like, I don't think this release is an anomaly. I have takes from this tour. I think all my experiences with Frank's guitar playing on this tour are like top level. If there is more material out there, this is a tour, although it is rather short, that would be fantastic to get more stuff. There is a boot from this tour, Picantique, which again, I think supports the theory that Frank's guitar playing is at its best on this tour. But anyways, yeah. So yeah, it would be number 2. It's an absolutely, absolutely fantastic release as far as guitar playing goes. And being that this is the only release we have from this tour, other than that bootleg, that is where it falls so far. It is by far, maybe not by far, the Bongo Fury tour is pretty good. But I think this is the number 1 tour so far that I've covered on here, as far as his guitar playing goes. His tone is great. His attack is great. The rhythm section is great. Like, everything about this is just Frank. He's not peaking, because he would definitely have a letdown in fall 73, but then 74 kind of finds him like rebuilding that energy until we get to fall 74, which is just like, to me, one of my favorite eras. But anyways, yeah, fantastic release. But that's all I got. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think of these solos. If you are familiar with these solos going forward and you watch these videos, one of the commenters always like ranks his solos before he then watches the video, which is awesome to see. So anyways, if anybody else wants to do that, yeah, from here on out, throw your rankings up before you watch it and see how we match. It's an interesting little, I like it. Anyways, that's it. That's all I got. Comment, subscribe, like, and go listen to everything on this album. This release is fantastic, especially the guitar solos. Peace. Talk to you later.